Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Periodic Review. My name is Jacob, and our podcast is brought to you by viewers such as yourself. And so we want to thank you so much for coming and watching wherever or whenever you've watched this stream. We want to appreciate you. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit a subscribe on all of our pages and channels. You know, we are now on YouTube, Facebook, Twitters, all the tweets. We're not on TikTok, unfortunately. But we want you to go ahead and make sure you're following us there so you know when we go live and when we post these up after the live show. Want to welcome my co-host for today, Mr. Daltano.
Hello, love.
Hello, how are you doing today, governor?
Doing well. If that's what they say, I don't know.
Oh, man. I've been doing good too. I'm a little tired. I've kind of been working my mind and my body a little hard the last couple of weeks, so I've been getting tired lately. But things are going good. Things are going good.
Good to hear.
Good. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to let our lovely conversation be our guide today. We don't really have any set topics. At least I don't want to do set topics anymore, just because it feels very strange. It feels very cumbersome. And then when I go back and I listen to the podcast later on, I feel like it's not really doing exactly what I want it to do. It feels kind of clunky because I'm like reading a bunch of like stuff. But I guess we will start off today's podcasts a month late from all the wonderful stuff about Lil Nas X. Do you know anything about Mr. Lil Nas X and the controversy around him?
I've heard of a little bit. Yes.
Okay, so Lil Nas X, aka Montero Lamar Hill, he is a rapper, and he's kind of coined himself as a country rap artist. He got really big with the hit. I'm just blanking right now. So
Old Town Road, right?
Old Town Road. Yes, that was the big hit that he hit big with. And he has actually a lot of other singles along with music videos. And I actually decided to take some time and actually sit down because I read the article about his Satan shoes. And I kind of looked a little bit about him, through Wikipedia. I actually listened to most of his music, including the EP that he released through Spotify. If you haven't checked out Spotify is amazing. And for me, like hip hop and rap and, all of its flavors of genres that people stick themselves into, it just really wasn't for me. I feel like there just wasn't really a lot of substance in it. I feel like Juice WRLD had a lot more substance in a lot of his songs. One of the songs I really like from him is a song called Wishing Well. And I actually kind of dig that tune. But I did notice that they used whoever he worked with to produce his music. He definitely worked on formulaic songs, including I'm definitely can see that, and hear that he's definitely using stuff like from the Beatles, like very simple verse, chorus, very short songs. I'm trying to think of other bands that have done that a lot in the past. Bullet for My Valentine did that. They did a lot of like really short, very quick songs that were just very formulaic and just like verse, chorus, outro or whatever. But as I was listening to him, I was just like, I'm really not getting into these songs. The only one I did get into was the Town Road song. I felt like that was a pretty solid song.
I agree. I like that song.
Yeah, and so I had to like listen to that a couple of times, but I watched the videos that went along with it. The videos, not only did his music like blow up and become very viral, but his music videos were very viral. Did you see any of his music videos outside of the one in question?
Just the Old Town Road one. I think I saw it a couple of times. I may have seen other ones. I'm just not super familiar with, I guess, him as an artist to know whether or not I've seen them.
Yeah. But they were actually very interesting videos. Nas X. I have to look at the I have to look at his YouTube channel because I'm just completely blanking. I know there was one song where he was this, futuristic Santa Claus, which was very interesting. The song is called Holiday. And so what's really interesting about him and what he decided to do in his videos.
Google Career Certificates provide.
I apologize. That was my bad. So some of the things I thought was really interesting is that he plays characters in these music videos, not just him singing or rapping or lip syncing while he's dancing around, stuff like that. But there's also a story to almost every single video that he has. And so the one with Holiday, he's kind of this futuristic Santa Claus, and he plays several of the characters. One of them's a toy soldier. Very, very weird, very interesting, but also not so different than a lot of these other people who play characters in their videos and when they do music. Some people that come to mind, David Bowie. He created characters for a lot of his, when he would go out and play live. There wasn't really a lot of music videos back then, but I would imagine that there would be a lot of music videos of him being these different characters, Ziggy Stardust and stuff. And so there was one where he becomes kind of this demon or kind of like a vampire or something like that. Which was kind of interesting, and he jumps on a couple of cars and crushes them while he jumps away like Superman jumps at the end, which was really interesting. Why I'm having so much trouble to just navigate for some strange reason. I'm beside myself right now. I should be much better at this. Yeah, so the Old Town Road one was really good, where he plays a cowboy. And he has a lot of actually big names in that one, which was pretty interesting. Rodeo is the one where he becomes kind of this demon character with fangs and stuff. But each video he does, he becomes a character within them, which I thought was actually really brilliant and really smart. Whoever is their marketing or producing, PR people or whatever that decided to work with him, Panini kind of takes place in this futuristic place where he's the model for advertising, kind of in Blade Runner, Fifth Element, a lot of those very deep sci-fi huge city build up kind of movies. So they were I'm gonna be honest, they were very good, they were very compelling, they were very interesting. Just the music for me just wasn't really, I guess it just didn't hit me, and that's okay, because so music this isn't always, when you go and look for music out there and to find new stuff, a lot of times you find a lot of music that is just not for you. And that's kind of how I felt when I went in and started listening to all the songs. But the video in question has drawn up a lot of controversy. It's his single Montero, Call Me By Your Name, which is a very interesting video. Have you seen the video already, Dalton?
I saw very little of it. I watched a little bit, and then I decided I didn't want to see anymore.
Oh, goodness gracious. And yeah, it's different. It's taking, obviously, the thematics are, with Christianity. He starts out, it looks like, in the Garden of Eden, under the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He's just playing a guitar. He gets tempted by a snake, and that scene's pretty awkward. They kiss, which is interesting. I wonder what those words are on that tree. This is a part of the video I thought was really interesting. It looks like when he goes up to, I don't know, heaven or somewhere to be judged, he's also playing each character as well that are judging him, which again is very him from all the previous, music videos that I saw. He plays a lot of the different characters. It looks like he gets judged and he's going to be taken up by an angel. And then all of a sudden I guess this part doesn't really make sense to me. All of a sudden he grabs a stripper pole, which goes and he rides it all the way down.
Okay, so it kind of sounds like he makes a choice not to go to heaven.
Yeah, which is, I guess, strange. And so he's singing, he's sliding down the pole, and I guess his pole work is on the way down's, I guess, not terrible. I don't know. And he's a very handsome guy. I'm going to be honest. He's a very handsome dude. Okay. And then he is okay. He's giving the devil a lap dance, which is strange. And I'll be honest, it's not even that good of a lap dance. He just kind of whips up and looks at the camera. There's not really a lot of and I guess they tried to keep it as as crazy as this whole thing seems. So he lap dances the devil, I guess, and then he kills the devil, takes his crown, and I guess becomes a demon or becomes Satan himself. Something like that.
Yeah, I've only seen part of it, so I'm not sure. I couldn't do it.
You couldn't watch it? Okay. No, that's
No.
fine. Honestly, the video isn't for us. This isn't something that we would normally go out and look for and watch. It's a very strange video, and it's very, I don't know, I guess very out of character from the pattern that he created with all these other videos, which were very directed at, I would want to say, a younger generation, a younger crowd.
And that's what he had said before, that was kind of his target audience.
Yeah, so I think looking at the videos and listening to the music, this is targeting probably your tweens, probably 12 to 16, somewhere around there. And with the videos being in the future for the boys, you got Santa Claus, which kids that age are still kind of believing in Santa Claus. He becomes some kind of a night crawler or a demon or something like that, or a vampire in one. So I guess it's just kind of strange. I feel kind of, I'm just kind of laughing at it just because it's just odd.
Right. I think the kind of the theme that he has going on, as in playing the different characters, I definitely like that about playing different characters, because it's kind of cool to see that and to see it from different perspectives, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But not so much the whole lap dance with Satan thing.
Yeah, that was really weird. And then being tempted by the snake, and the snake, I guess, licking his stomach or something. I don't know, it was really strange.
Yeah, and it definitely bugs me that kind of his target audience, at least from what I've heard and from what I've seen, and I think I saw an interview with him. I believe I may be incorrect, but from what I've seen, his target audience is those younger kids, which makes me wonder if that was his target audience with this one. I'm hoping it wasn't, but I don't know, because I know that, as far as I know, it's not age restricted. Whereas other things like, say, political things that don't have cussing or anything like that, even cussing in them, right, are age restricted. But this isn't.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really sure what the idea behind it was. If it was something that he wanted to do, or something that, his PR people or whoever, is behind him, actually took some time, was just hey, wouldn't it be a great idea, if you played this guy and you end up like in the Garden of Eden, and you get tempted, and then you get judged to go to heaven, but then you decide to go down to hell. It's like, I'm just trying to picture myself, in his shoes, or at least the PR people's shoes, like kind of going over this idea and this kind of like concept, and how they just decided that, yes, this is a good idea.
I mean, we've had a similar concept like that forever. It's the whole eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die type thing.
Yeah, well, and it's not, I'll just be honest, it's not very surprising, because we have this kind of shock and awe stuff that we've had, not only in Hollywood, but definitely in the music industry. I mean, just to name a few that I can think of off the top of my head: Alice Cooper, shock and awe; Ozzy Osbourne, shock and awe; Marilyn Manson, shock and awe; Slipknot, shock and awe. Like it's not a new concept. It's not anything that would be surprising. I think probably the surprising thing for me is that this is somebody who, they've definitely targeting a certain range, of younger kids, and YouTube, kids are on it all the time. Even if it does have an age gate, you can still just say, yes, I'm, I don't know how that works on YouTube, to be honest. I don't even know if they even have one, to be honest.
Well, I know they have age restrictions for some things, but like you're saying, maybe you could just go in there and change it, or just create another account and say that you're 25 or whatever when you're really 12.
Yeah, and I don't even know how I'd even like look at the info on this to even know if it's age restricted. I mean, I'm kind of a boomer in this way. As I've gotten older, I've kind of gone away from being involved in knowing and understanding technology and all of its intricacies. But unfortunately, I don't really know how to like check any of that stuff.
I mean, I would imagine that it has to do with the monetization of it as well.
Oh, for sure.
Because I mean, you're not going to have people wanting to monetize something if it's horrible and terrible. If it's like a bunch of Nazis talking about how terrible people are, no one's going to monetize that,
right?
And no one's going to want to market on that,
right? And eventually,
so
unless it's like a historical thing, eventually it will be pulled down.
Yes, those things.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just kind of confused. Like, I understand the video's not for me. Like, this isn't something, this person I probably would not have found if I didn't see that there was some controversy, not only around the video, but like some specialty, augmented Nikes that he also like, went through some kind of creator, MS Meshiff, I guess I'm assuming, unless it's an acronym, is the maker of Lil Nas X custom-made Satan shoes.
I saw those, yeah. So what, like 666 pairs or something like that, I believe?
Yeah, something like that.
It certainly seems like that's mixed along with this as kind of a PR stunt to be like, hey, look at me, like the whole shock and awe thing that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe he didn't actually want to do it, but kind of got talked into it. Or maybe it was his idea all along. Who knows? There are too many variables and not enough information. And
yeah,
one way or the other, I don't know that we would get an honest answer out of anyone for that. Yeah. Because even answering could be a PR thing. So he could say that it was all him when it was really his like producer or whatever, or vice versa.
Yeah. Yep, that's actually a really good point. So I guess, I mean, I'm just going to keep track of it, and excuse me, obviously I haven't read every single article that he's ever been on, or any kind of every single interview he's been on it, but I did read the piece where it talked about that Nike was being sued because of all of this, and they've reached out to Meshiff and told him cease and desist. Like, there any shoes now that if they're in somebody's possession, they're asking them to send them back to Nike, and they'll give them a full refund. The strangest part of the Satan shoes, though, where they use something in some kind of the dye. I don't know if it's the dye inside of the actual shoe base, which it kind of like looks like a red blood moving around, like in the sole of the shoe where Nikes have a lot of air usually in those spaces, and you can see this red liquid, I think. And
Right.
supposedly there's like a drop of blood in every single pair of shoes. And I'm just like, well, first of all, that's, I think there's some kind of legality against that, just because blood is considered a biological issue if it's, out in the open. That's why, when there's any, dirty clothes from like, when somebody's doing surgery or whatever, they are always, cleaning. They always like throw it away in a specific bin. That bin is it's biological. So they take care of it in a certain way. I don't think you could get away with putting somebody's, blood, which is, DNA, inside of a shoe and sell it. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's FDA approved.
Well, it's absolutely not, but you can definitely get away with doing it. The question is, how long can you get away with doing it?
And this is true. And
they've already, as far as I know, they've already sold. They sold all of them. Within?
like
It was a very short
hours?
period of time where they
Less
sold
than
all
hours?
of them. Probably hours or maybe even less, depending on how much PR they did beforehand.
Yeah.
Which I imagine probably wasn't too much, because as far as I've heard, these weren't from Nike. This was like a third party using Nike stuff, or like using their logo and putting it out with this guy. And which is probably
Gotcha.
kind of why there's that lawsuit going on, because they're like, no, this isn't us.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've heard.
Oh, so Nike did win the lawsuit and it resulted in temporary restraining order against the sale of the shoes. Well, the shoes were
Nice.
already sold like within, I'm sure, an hour or two of it.
Yeah, and you're not going to get all of those back unless they
No.
hadn't shipped out yet.
Actually,
But usually the court takes a long time to figure that stuff out anyway, so they're already gone.
well, let's check out the good old eBay. Little Nas X Satan shoes.
Probably a knockoff brand for $5,000.
Sure enough. Let's see. We got some for $8,666. Lol. Some of these looks like they're going for thousands. Here's a pair for, looks like exactly how much they bought it for.
That's
Wow.
probably a knockoff.
Probably. I mean, who knows?
I mean, the entire thing, they're not even Nikes anyway, as far as I know. So they're a knockoff in and of themselves.
In and of itself, it's not like they took
Right.
a Nike shoe, augmented it, and then try to resell it.
I mean, they may have done that, but I mean, just kind of like the brand wise, not necessarily the makeup of the shoe being Nike, more the brand, like an
Yeah.
official one going out from them.
Yeah. I don't think, I mean, with all of these huge conglomerate companies, making billions of dollars, I don't think they could reasonably get away with this, doing something like this.
Oh no, not as a big company, because you would have so many people.
Yeah, not happy.
Yeah,
with
you would have so many people not happy about that. And I mean, who knows? Maybe this is some sort of test run. I don't know if that's the case, but
it. We put
maybe
on our
it's some sort
tinfoil
of test
hats
run
here.
to see where society is.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be something from Nike or from some big company. It's just like maybe one person was like, hey, is society ready for something like this? Because society has changed a lot in the last, I don't know, probably more so in the last 10 years than before that. But
Oh yeah,
I mean, especially within the last 100 years, there have been huge changes
yeah, for
and
sure.
kind of what's considered acceptable, what's not.
I think I agree with that. I think as a society, we're more open to things and we're open to be more tolerant of things. I think as a whole, I just think that there's these very small, very radical groups that are perpetuating very strange things on, on the internet and in their daily lives, which is very strange. So I guess apparently he is an openly gay person. I guess he came out recently.
And I don't know how much of that I believe, because it seems like that's just like an excuse to say like, oh well, I was given a lap dance to the devil because I'm gay, duh.
Mm,
It's like, well,
maybe.
that's not a very good even if that is the case. I mean, you're playing a character anyway, so that doesn't matter. That's what acting is. It doesn't matter if you are really gay or not.
Yeah, and even if it was the case, I'm not really offended about it. Again, like this is just video, and this music is just not for me. It's not something I would normally seek out. And if I did listen to it or I did say it, I'd be like, okay, that was different, and I would just move on with my life. Like if I didn't start, this podcast with my wife, this wouldn't be something I would even talk about, to be honest. It was actually something that she vehemently did not want to talk about because of its context. It's
right.
But again, like I'm not offended. I'm personally not offended for the world or anything like that. I am a little concerned with young kids getting this, because there's a lot of young kids on YouTube, on TikTok, on all these different platforms, and they're seeing this stuff. And especially looking back on my life when I was around 12 to 16, I was confused as all get up, just because I was just who I was at that time, but if I was being blasted all the time, with this kind of imagery and this kind of music, especially like in, what's very prominent in the rap and hip hop world, where they do talk a lot about drugs and sex and mistreating women and stuff like that. But there's a lot of that in like rock music as well from the past. So, I mean, it's not, but it's just not something that I would listen to all the time. Right. It's just not for me.
It's not your thing.
It's just not my thing.
I think the main issue that I have with it, I mean, he absolutely has the right to do that, but
absolutely,
to market stuff like that to young kids and to not have it age restricted when other things that aren't necessarily inappropriate, however you want to define that word, that aren't that shouldn't necessarily be age restricted are. That's kind of where I have the issue there, where it's that hypocrisy. And I don't know if it's on his side, YouTube side, whoever. But if you're going to have a rule, it should be done equally.
Okay. And so, and I can't remember when YouTube started doing this. I was trying to kind of juggle it on the fly here, but I'm, I haven't really been following it. But at a certain point of time, YouTube did decide to change some of their algorithms and have some kind of an age, like restricting kind of thing going on with their algorithms. And so it's supposed to help keep children that are younger than 13 from watching things that are not appropriate for kids. I still think that number's kind of strange, and I'm really curious why they decided 13. Maybe it was because of laws, or maybe because it was litigation against tech companies. I'm not really sure.
I would imagine it has to do with movies and PG-13.
Oh yeah, that would make
whatever's behind that number.
That would make sense, because today's world and how they do those kinds of things and figure out, okay, what's PG, what's PG-13, what's rated R, and what can't you have, what's pushing the boundaries, which honestly, it's been loosey-goosey. I can't tell you from how long. And so rated R movies from, 20 years ago are very different than rated R movies that we watch today.
Yeah, rated R movie from 20 years ago would be like a PG bordering on PG-13 now.
Yeah,
maybe
strange.
30 years ago, but kind of right in that range, where you had a little bit of violence and you had like a reference to sex or something like that, and now it's just flat out there. And some of those are PG-13, where you just kind of see talks about all, there's blood and gore, and it's just the standards have definitely changed. Yeah. I don't think for the better, but they have changed either way.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think we've become desensitized over the years, and so movie makers are trying to push the boundaries of what is and what is not, okay, in the different rating blocks. And I'll be honest, like watching Mortal Kombat today and the newest Mortal Kombat movie that came out, and then like remembering, Mortal Kombat back, I think it was like the late 90s or something that Mortal Kombat came out with a film based on the game. very different. Much more gore, much more violence, much more realistic, like deaths and stuff like that. It's a very very strange thing.
I can imagine. I haven't seen it.
I mean,
At least the new one. I
good.
saw the old one a while ago, but not the new one yet.
Like the storytelling I think is a lot better than the old one. I don't think the storytelling is perfect, but I definitely would say it is definitely a above average good movie. Like I would definitely recommend it for sure. But if you don't like very graphic violence, then maybe skip it.
Gotcha.
Because that's all it is.
Oh, it's just straight up violence.
Straight up, just very graphic, very crazy violence. But that's,
I mean, the violence makes sense because it's Mortal Kombat, but
yeah,
I getcha.
But I would definitely say the storytelling was really good. I would have changed up some of the things in the storytelling personally, just because I think there was a better way of including Scorpion in it. In the way that they brought out Scorpion, I felt like they could have done this a little bit differently, and I think it would have been definitely one notch better. But I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to do spoilers today, but I definitely recommend checking it out. It's very interesting. I'm curious, Dalton, when you were growing up and you were in high school, did you have a lot of kids while you were growing up through high school? Did you interact with a lot of kids that were openly gay or openly lesbian or all these different, I guess, sections of non-binary, asexual, et cetera, pansexual? Did you deal with a lot of that when you were in high school?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I also didn't have, like we had said before, I wasn't the most popular person, but a lot of people knew me, and I knew a lot of people as well. But there weren't a whole lot that identified in some non-binary way or identified as homosexual, anything like that. There were a couple of them, but that was just what theater was. And I wasn't in theater, but I did building trades. So I helped build some of the sets for theater. I actually built like a freestanding balcony that my friend kind of got to hang off of, and there were like 6 people up on top at once. So it was really cool. But in that experience, I met some people that did identify as homosexual, gay, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And I think there were a few. And then I had a friend, a super close friend, that stayed with us for a while, that identified as that kind of later on after high school. After I think I had already left on my mission, or I had gone somewhere else. But yeah,
I know who you're talking about. He's an interesting kid.
I mean, it wasn't a big thing. I mean, I don't personally see it in my life a whole lot now as a big thing. If you want to do whatever, just leave me out of it. I mean, same for me. If I want to be heterosexual, you don't need to know that I am. Sexuality doesn't matter. I don't need to go out there blasting everything that I possibly can about my own sexuality. That's a personal thing. There's some things that you can talk about in public, and there's some things that you really shouldn't.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree. I don't think we live in an age where people come up to you and say, "Hi, my name is Billy. I am a non-binary, asexual person, and I go by thee and they." And it's like, I don't know. We just don't live in a world where people really do that. I feel like people do that online. I feel like people do that in social media. But
yeah, we're getting closer to that.
It's possible. I mean, I personally haven't experienced it. However, I do live in a very small town in rural, southern Utah. So it's possible I'm not going to see a lot of those kids. However, we do have a really good melting pot with the college here. So, I mean, I do occasionally see people, I go, okay, that person has a lot of color in their hair. Okay, that person has a lot of tattoos on their face. Okay, that person has a lot of piercings. And it doesn't mean, anything really, but we just don't talk that way. We go, "Hi, my name is Jacob. How you doing today?" It's not, "Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm a white, straight male. I like women." Well, who cares? Why would anybody give that information?
See, and that's the thing that I see. I don't care if someone is white, black, which is kind of funny apparently you can't say black, but you can say white, which if black is racist, then white would be as well, which they're not black. I'm not white anyway. I'm not looking at a piece of paper and seeing the same color here.
Okay.
But I just think it's interesting because I don't care about those things. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're gay, straight, homosexual, heterosexual, pansexual, any of those. I don't care if you're trans. It's like, are you a good person?
Yeah.
And if we're talking about like the workforce, can you do the job?
Well, that's a whole nother like ball game too.
Right.
Just because. Well, okay, so let's do a what do you call it?
Thought experiment.
Let's do a thought. Yeah, let's play pretend here. You know, so there's 3 people. Let's just say there's 4 people, you know, going for the same job. They want to be a bank teller at some big bank in the city. And, you know, each person, you know, looks a certain way. You know, like let's say there's a white guy, clean cut. There's a black guy, clean cut. There's a girl, clean cut. And then there's another person with 3 tattoos on their neck. They got all sorts of metal in their face. They got different colors on their hair. Which person is probably going to be eliminated for being the face of the company? Probably the person with the rainbow hair, the metal in their face, and the tattoos on their neck. And they're probably going to pick out of the 3 people that are clean cut or, you know, have an appearance that will be pleasing to other people when they come and do their banking stuff. And they're going to choose the person out of those 3 that's the best candidate, probably their background, how they interviewed. And that's something that's really interesting. And that's just because I've hired many people and gone through the hiring process. And I honestly, well, and it's different for each industry, but in my industry that I was working in at that time, I was looking for people who were good people that I felt were going to be hard workers. But it didn't really matter how they looked like, as long as they looked like they could be presentable for somebody in their home. And that was pretty much it. Like, it wasn't a lot of like, well, it was nice having, you know, some background stuff like electrical or, you know, talking about, you know, when I worked for a prominent security company, now over a year ago. Yay. I'm so glad. But I'm just saying, like, in that thought experiment, it's going to be, they're going to choose somebody that's going to look the best when somebody approaches them.
Yeah, especially if you're in that public role where people are looking at you every day.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which makes sense. And it also, I mean, it really depends on where you are, and it depends on, like, geographically speaking, and it depends on the policies and procedures of the company. If you're a record store,
That too.
you're probably going to find more people. I mean, more people may be interested in it, but you're probably going to pick someone that has those tattoos and the piercings and stuff like that. At least that's what I've seen. Or
True.
like a popular clothing store, things
Or
like
a game
that.
store,
More,
you know, where there's like, you know, Pokemon and Magic and comic books. You know, you could probably get away with getting a job over there. Like even
right,
like
it's a different
McDonald's.
lifestyle. It's a different I forgot the word, but that's
It's
okay.
a different image for a different industry and a different company.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the way it is. And is it discriminatory? Sure. I wouldn't call it like, you know, crazy discrimination and something that should be fought. And like, it's just like, we need somebody who needs to fit the right, you know, space. If
Right.
we
And I
need a
think the word
square,
discrimination,
we need
I think,
square to put in.
go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I think the word discrimination gets a bad rap anyway, because I mean, it's just like the word consequence. You say the
Right.
word consequence and people automatically give it a negative connotation. They automatically give discrimination a negative connotation. Well, let's say you're going to the store and you need to buy a shirt. You have one shirt that's yellow and it has your favorite band on it, and you have another shirt that's blue and it has your favorite band on it. Well, you like the blue shirt better. Well, by definition, you're technically discriminating against the yellow shirt, but you're just picking what you like more. Like
Yeah.
if I knew a couple of people, I've actually had this before, some friends that just were ended up being just terrible people and being mean to me and not caring about me or anything like that, I'm going to quote discriminate unquote against them and not want to be their friends anymore. So it's kind of picking and
Right.
choosing, but we put this negative connotation on the word discrimination and think, oh, if you're picking one thing over the other, that's automatically bad. It's like, no, it's not automatically bad. It's just a choice. Now, if you're going to say, oh, I'm not going to hire you because you're white, okay, we've got a problem there
Yeah,
because you're
that's
basing
racial
it off of an
discrimination.
immutable characteristic, something that cannot change.
Right, right.
You can't change that. So, like, how am I supposed to get a or go for a job and they say, and it's something that I really want, and they say we're not going to hire you because you're white. Well, if I really want to go in there, I can't just change my skin color and get a different and get the job. That's
Mm-hmm.
not something that you have control over.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna tell you this thing really quick, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about a documentary I saw. So I actually looked up the word discrimination just by Googling it, and the first part of it says the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things, and then they add especially on the grounds of race, age, or sex.
Well, how old is that definition?
Who knows?
Because definitions are changing all the time, especially with this
Oh,
whole social justice thing. You're changing definitions all the time.
yeah,
Whereas,
and
like, to
that's difficult.
discriminate basically means to pick one thing over the other,
Yeah,
and to be
recognition.
prejudiced means to prefer one thing over the other, which
Yeah,
could be anything. I prefer green over pink. I am being prejudiced against pink at that point. By
so
definition, if you're going strictly by definition, that would be showing prejudice and discrimination against the color pink.
right. And so the second definition is recognition and understanding of the differences between one thing and another.
Which
So
kind
it's
of goes
like,
toward more toward what I was saying before.
yeah.
That definition of there is a difference, you recognize it, whoop de doo. Anyone that can see can recognize that difference.
Yeah.
Or if it's a verbal cue, anyone that can hear can recognize the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that says otherwise is
Yeah.
not being truthful.
And I think,
Or being a troll or whatever. There are
yeah.
lots of different options.
Yeah. Yeah. And trolls are hard to distinguish sometimes because they go so hard on the troll, you really do believe and think what they're saying is what they feel and how they think.
Yeah, sometimes. I think that gets hard.
It's difficult sometimes, but I think what is really interesting about humanity and how we've evolved, especially since the internet, honestly, is that things are rapid, like they're changing, and they're changing faster and faster. Like and this is kind of what is hard, because if we're continually changing and we're continually not able to agree or say, hey, orange is an orange, the sky is the sky, but now we have different connotations or different words or different verbiages to help you understand that this is actually not the sky, this is actually the ground. And so if we're continuing not to be able to agree to it, like let's say you and me are looking up at the sky and we say, well, the sky is blue, and you say, well, no, the sky is more of a purplish blue. And if we can't come to an understanding and agree on some things, like as simple as that, like it's putting societal like nuances in like an absolute tailspin.
Right. It definitely makes things difficult. I mean, and it could be simple things just like man, woman. Those
Yeah.
have generally been very easy things to distinguish. And now you have a lot of people in society saying, well, no,
No, we disagree
sometimes
with
it's
you.
this, sometimes it's
We
that.
don't.
Yeah,
We don't
we
agree with
disagree.
you. Man,
And
woman, child, mother, father. We don't, like, there's people saying that we don't agree with these terminologies anymore. We want to change them, or we want to remove them altogether. And that's something that's even more scary, because if we remove a lot of these things that help us understand who we are, then what do we become?
right. And I mean, even if you do remove the actual words, those kind of the verbal cues, the words to them, there's still an automatic meaning behind it. A baby can recognize the difference between a human and a dog without understanding the words human and dog.
Right.
You still see that difference. Now, I mean, one day we may get to the point to where everyone wears the exact same clothing and they have the exact same haircut and same facial features, which is a dystopian nightmare, which a lot of people think would be great because that's what equality is, right? Wrong. But at that point, that's something that scares me, man.
It scares me too. Like, honestly, like I'm terrified with this whole like uptick of there's this issue between like black and whites now. It's like, what? Like, that's something I guess I'm baffled. I'm absolutely baffled about. And this is coming from someone who has spent, long 5-6 month stints in the summer out in places like Savannah, Georgia, out in places like Cleveland, Ohio, out in places like Maryland, in these communities, in these cities where it's predominantly black. And I found it very interesting because when I got into those places, I didn't really feel different, except for I noticed my surroundings were different. The people around me were different. It wasn't, where in the Midwest, it's more predominantly white, Latino, and Asian. Where you go more out east, it's predominantly, black, Latino, and Asian, depending on where you go. And then it's like, there's like a lot less white people out east, which was very interesting. But as I actually worked with these people and talked with them, like, and then I was listening and seeing all these things on like social media, like, all this injustice against black people and black and white people and how we're always at odds. And I go into that, thinking like, oh goodness, maybe I should worry about my safety more. Honestly, I didn't worry about my safety at all, which is very strange. I only had like maybe 2 times where I felt really, really terrified. And one of them was because there was a potential abuse against spouses. They were like in a very heated, very raised voice. I mean, there was drugs going on. I was trying to install a security system and they were screaming at each other. And I was just like, hey, I just need you to sign this thing so I can leave.
Right.
But it was at the point where I was just like, maybe I should call the cops. But then it like calmed down and everybody was fine. But it was just like one of those things. I felt like, oh goodness, I might have to get into this because I'm kind of on site here. I don't know what to do. And the other time was in Cleveland, Ohio. Might not have been exactly in Cleveland. It's one of the surrounding cities. But anyways, we were installing cameras late at night, and there was a bunch of kids outside hanging out, and all of a sudden, like, gunshots went off. Of course, we ran to the house and hid and waited. And then 15 minutes later, a cop car kind of rolled by with no lights on, and that was pretty much it. Those were only 2 times I really felt like I was in immediate danger. But for the most part, like, people were actually really kind. I found they were very open to actually talk about things, which blew me away because everybody's telling me, on social media that all of us white people are bad, and and there's issues between black and white people, and I just did not see that.
And I just think that's absolutely hilarious. Not your safety or race issues or anything like that, but saying that white people are bad, you're judging someone based solely upon the color of their skin, something that they cannot control.
Right.
That, by definition, is racist. You're basing your belief off of something that you're seeing that they can't control, just their skin color.
Yeah.
It's like, how stupid could you possibly be to actually believe that? And I don't believe that most of the country, whether you're white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, I don't think that most people really care a whole lot about race. I know I don't. I think it's mostly the media is trying to push this because they know that race sells and that people are interested in it. And I believe we had talked about this before. The easiest way to kind of get people to infight or to fight against each other is to show them their differences.
Yeah.
And that's a difference that you can just see like that. You don't have to get to know anyone. You don't have to talk to them. You just look at them. You can see a difference. And if you're trained, which some people are, but most people aren't, if you're trained to not like that thing because you see it, then there's an issue.
Yeah. And that's what was strange to me, because like social media was saying that because of my skin color, I was a bad person. You know, I had these unconscious biases because of where I came from. And honestly, I'd have to like double check, but I'm pretty sure I have a lot of, Scottish and Irish and probably, German. I'm assuming there's some Scandinavian in there. I'd have to do like a DNA test just to, double check, but I'm pretty sure like my ancestors like came from Europe for the most part. And so, I mean, that's who I am. That's where I came from. And my grandfather was like an immigrant. He immigrated from Germany to get away from the war, like, cause he didn't agree with it.
And I mean, even then, those things don't necessarily define who you are. They do, genetically speaking, but like I'm from Arizona, and you would think that, I guess people that wouldn't know me, would think that I don't know a whole lot about like Mexican culture. Well, I lived in Mexico for 2 years, so that's become part of me. So I understand those things. So am I automatically racist against Hispanics, Mexicans, wherever they're from, Spaniards, if I'm white? Or is it also based on my culture and actually how I treat those people? Because your culture could be different. It depends on too many variables. It's not just your skin color. It's not just where you're from. It's what you've done with your life as well. And you could have one white kid, a black kid, and a Mexican from the exact same neighborhood, and they've been friends their entire life. They have the same culture at that point. Yeah. At least growing up kind of in the same neighborhood. At least American culture. They're doing the same thing. Yeah. It's that culture where you could have another person from a completely different place that has a completely different culture at that point.
Yeah.
It's not just skin color.
Yeah. And I think, let me tell you some of my experiences, because I actually got to speak with some people about their culture and kind of some of the things that were going on. And it was really interesting, like what they shared with me. And I really wish I had their number, and I really wish I remembered their names, because it would be so awesome to have them on this podcast and just talk to them. But so I was with one family, and wide range, like the poorest of the poor, holes in the roof, and the windows don't close all the way. The door's off the hinge. I'm still installing a security system, like that poor. I mean, I've done middle class, a little bit nicer homes, but not really that great. And I've also installed homes that were just like immaculate. And, a lot of these like black communities, I got to install them and talk with them. When I was installing one, it was a more lower income home and household. Unfortunately, the husband wasn't in the picture, which was unfortunate. And she had a teenage kid, and the kid came in and he was mouthing off, and he used the N-word in front of her and in front of me, which I was kind of surprised. And he got smacked in the back of the head. And she's like, "Do not say that word. We do not say that word." And, after, she disciplined him and he went off, over his thing, and left the home, she kind of, we kind of got to talking about it. And I'm just like, you guys don't really use that word. I thought that was like a thing, like within your culture, that's a word that you guys use as a term of endearment and things like that. It's all over in the music and stuff like that. And she's like, absolutely not. Like, that's a disparaging word. Even, we in our family, we do not use that word. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And, I had some preconceptions, and actually blew away a lot of like, my conceptions on whether or not that word is appropriate, even within their culture. And I actually, the more that I talk to other people, both in the poor and the middle class and upper class, they don't talk like that. They don't use that kind of language. And it was very eye-opening to me, just because I was watching all this social media, all these videos saying like, because I'm white, I'm a bad person. And because I'm white, I have, implicit biases and I have unconscious biases. And because of my skin color, I'm automatically a racist. And when I spoke to people and they shared with me about their culture and the things that they're trying to do within their communities to try to change, a lot of these things, they're mostly just normal people, just like anybody else. Like, even though I grew up Midwest, I grew up in an LDS family, unfortunately we had divorces and remarriages, which, was really hard on us kids. But for the most part, we had pretty decent childhoods. And, in talking with people like on the East Coast in those communities, some of them didn't have, great upbringings, but I talked to a lot of them that had very great upbringings. Like, I talked to people that, went to places like Harvard and Oxford, and they're trying very, very hard to change the things that are going on in their communities. And when I look at different organizations like Antifa, like Black Lives Matter, and seeing their goals and seeing all the riots and seeing all of the dismay and looking at their manifesto and like the things that they want to accomplish, I feel like that, that very, very small, very radical group is really demolishing the things that these communities are really trying to do within themselves. And it's really hurting them from progressing and moving forward. And it's really sad to see, to be honest. Like, I love those people out there. They were so kind. Like, I think, honestly, in comparison, like I served a mission in West Virginia. I think I got more meals installing security systems than I did, preaching the word during that time. Very, very interesting. Very fascinating.
Oh yeah, maybe we should put that lady in charge of all these different movements.
Yeah, honestly. Maybe she'll be able to knock some sense into some of these kids, because like when I was looking, like watching some of these riot videos, it's mostly just kids, very young kids, like teenagers.
And for her, I'm grateful that she did this. I applaud her for this. I applaud anyone for it. But she decided to choose a different culture. Now, I have no idea how she was raised. Maybe that's how she was raised. Maybe she wasn't. But she made a conscious choice, one way or the other, to either change how she had been raised or to accept it, and to then live that way and to teach that to her kid. Maybe she had more, but at least to teach that in her home. Yeah. The person next door, maybe they didn't make that choice. Maybe they had a completely different culture. So what I was saying before, it's not always about where you grow up. You could have the person right next door be completely different than you are, but everything else is the same, at least geographically speaking. You go to the same school, you go to the same stores, all of those things. Your house may even look identical. I mean, a lot of them now do.
Yeah. We live in a very strange world.
We do, and it's not getting like, much better.
The media and the social media don't really reflect the reality, which is very strange. And I think, honestly, like since I've been unplugging myself from it and just choosing not to participate in the majority of it, like I'm seeing the holes in a lot of these, I would, not short of propaganda pieces to kind of change the way people are thinking. And it's not good. We need to come together. We really need to come together as Americans. We need to come together as, if we want to put labels on them, white Americans, black Americans, Asian Americans, Latino Americans. We all need to band together and say enough is enough with all of this garbage that people are putting out there.
And I absolutely agree with you. The only question is, what do you come together around? Because you have to gather around something. And it used to be you would gather around the American dream. You would gather around morals and values. Mm-hmm. But
I think we need to go back to that.
And I absolutely agree with you. I think that doing that would be immensely beneficial for everyone involved. I mean, you're still going to have people that have issues. It's just human nature. But I think that that's something that we should gather around. But with the media going so hard against all those quote unquote traditional values, which is what the world has kind of run on for at least hundreds of years, probably even more. I would say thousands of years, especially going back to like biblical times and things like that, where everything was very structured and rigid.
Yeah.
Where we don't really
religion.
have that now.
We don't.
You have, and it's definitely unfortunate. You have so many groups. I mean, you have people that just absolutely despise and vehemently hate the United States of America and everything that it stands for, yet they're still here, and they want to still live here, which doesn't make any sense. If you absolutely hate something, why would you want to be around it? Like, if I'm around a person that I just can't stand, I would just leave. I would go away, or I would try to kind of enclose myself or find better friends or whatever.
Mhm.
But they're not doing that. They're trying to fundamentally change the United States, which it's kind of hard to love something and want to fundamentally change it at the same time. And it doesn't make sense. And I think that's one of the big issues, is that there's not really a whole lot that we have in common anymore, because the media is constantly telling us what's different about ourselves versus each other.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You know, and it's just kind of the world we live in at the moment. But the good news is that it could change. You know, I think it really starts at the level of, you know, the family. You know,
I absolutely agree.
you know, husbands and wives, you know, couples. Like, it doesn't even matter if you're gay or straight, just the family in whatever form it is. I think is where we need to start.
I can kind of get with you on that. I'm definitely more traditional when it comes to the family and marriage. But if we're taking it from a 10 about terribleness and us just not getting along, and we're trying to bring it down, I mean, I can get behind that. You have to start somewhere. Yeah. And I absolutely agree that it starts in the home. It starts in the family, but you don't really have a whole lot of family anymore, because the family, I think the family was the first thing to get attacked. And part of that happened, I believe it was Lyndon Baines Johnson with like the Great Societies Act, where kind of welfare, not necessarily was started, but was basically targeted in those African-American communities, or at least African-American at the time, black, whatever terminology you want to use. And they basically incentivized the women to kick the fathers of the kids out, and said, hey, we're not going to give you, we will give you money if you are single, if you're a single parent. Well, what do you think people are going to do?
Yeah.
All they have to do is not be married.
Skyrocket. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then
like,
you get free money.
dumb.
It's like the guy can be there until a person comes, and you know their neighbors may be looking out for him, and that happens in every culture. You got neighbors looking out for you, but that was one of the first steps to kind of destroy the family, because, well, now whatever race you are, whatever culture you are, now you only have one parent in the household.
Yeah. Which
makes things so much more difficult, and not necessarily just like spiritually or kind of learning those different gender roles, the traditional ones, but I mean just financially speaking.
Yeah.
Now you have either a single
difficult.
mother or a single father that's worried about taking care of you. Hopefully, if they're good parents, they're worried about that. And I believe that most people care about their kids, some more than others, and some show it in different ways. But they have that to think about. They have your education to think about. They have their personal lives to think about, as well as the finances, where there's only one of them now. So there's approximately half the finances.
Yeah.
So you have to make big changes. Instead of going out to eat every day or every week or so, you might have to eat some Chef Boyardee, which is delicious. But
I'll disagree with you there. I don't like that canned pasta stuff.
Oh man.
But that's okay. My wife does, and we buy it for her. And every time she makes it, I'm like, "What's that smell? It smells gross." And then she comes out with a bowl of Chef Boyardee. I'm like, "Oh, that's what that is. Diarrhea in a bowl."
It's just more of a nostalgia thing for me. I remember making
No, that's good.
Making
That's good. That's
Chef
good.
Boyardee when I was a kid. I don't know. I was like 7 or 8, something like that, and just making that stuff. And I have no taste anyway.
Well, we as human beings, we of the human race, we need to start raising. We just need to start raising good people, like good children.
I agree.
Good
So
young adults, good teenagers.
now, how do you do that? Because what is kind of, we were talking about those definitions. What is good? What is evil?
I think people need to figure that out for themselves. They need to talk to their significant other, and they need to figure out what kind of morals are you going to instill in this person. You know, what kind of, are you going to teach them, you shouldn't kill people. You shouldn't hurt people. You shouldn't incite violence,
Yeah,
Like,
and I absolutely agree with that.
very basic, very, understanding. Like, people just need to figure out what they're going to do, and they need to do that. But, and that's kind of tough too, because there are some people that think it's okay to perpetuate violence, and it's okay for kids to be, what's the word? Wow, I'm like completely blanking right now. My brain is not working. I told you I'm tired. But just like little brats who think that they should have everything that they want and get it
Exactly.
now.
And that's what they're taught, because and that kind of goes back to parenting. If you have a kid that's yelling and screaming and you give them what they want, well, what do you think they're going to do next time they want something?
They're going to yell and scream.
They're going to yell and scream. Exactly. So you just have to have a backbone. And I understand that there are absolutely times where you're just done. You've had a long week at work or a long week at home.
Yeah.
And you're just out of it. And you just want them to leave you alone for a couple of minutes. I get that. But if it's a constant thing where you're doing it over and over and over again, that's exactly what you're teaching them.
Yeah.
So when they get older, what do you think they're going to do? They might not yell and scream anymore, but they're going to get upset. They're going to try to yell at people. They're going to try to justify their actions because that's what they've learned. And you don't have to teach that to them with words. Actions, it's cliche, but actions absolutely speak louder than words. You could teach someone a million lessons and never say a word.
Yeah. I can't remember what the quote is. I think there's a quote where it talks about, give me a child until he is 7 and I'll show you the man, or something like that. I can't remember. I think it was a philosopher or something like that. Like,
yeah, probably.
Well, here's the thing though. When you apply that the way that we've been applying things and like programming people, propaganda, et cetera, if you can get that person at a young age and show them that violence is okay.
It's justified.
Yeah, and it's always justified and you can always do it. What are they going to do for the rest of their lives? They're more than likely they're going to believe that, or at least they're going to believe that until they get to the point where they go, this hasn't worked in my life. Maybe I should do something different.
Exactly, which usually takes them getting the crap beat out of them, or takes them into jail or prison, which causes even more issues, and they feel like they've been wronged. Mm-hmm. Whereas it's actually been them this entire time. Like if you don't beat someone up, you're not going to go to jail. If you don't commit violence, you're not going to go to jail. If you don't commit a crime, you're not going to go to jail. It's a very simple cause and effect. Usually, I mean, there are definitely those outliers where you get framed for something or whatever, but most of the time, like, for example, if you don't drink alcohol, you will never drive drunk, which means you'll never get pulled over for driving drunk. It's just a simple cause and effect.
I do agree with you with the cause and effect.
Right.
Because we all make choices, and these choices affect our lives, and they can affect our lives for the benefit of ourselves and others, or they can or they could not benefit the lives of ourselves and others.
Right.
And what's really interesting is that there's always a ripple effect. But going back to instilling good things in young kids, my wife and I, we went through the foster care system, and we had a placement for about a year and a month, something like that. It was a 14-year-old boy, and it was difficult. I mean, nothing, always is perfect when you decide to foster a child. A lot of times there's a lot of underlying trauma. There's a lot of things that haven't been dealt with from the past. A lot of times they come in with already preconceived notions of what they can and can't do. And we did our absolute very best to give this person a home, that we would love them, that we would cherish them. We did give guidelines and rules of the home. We also worked on giving things in small increments, and oftentimes we gave it to the point where, well, you need to earn this, and this is how you can earn this. Like for instance, the phone was always a big thing for our kiddo, and we started out with a flip phone, and we understood that the flip phone was not the best thing in the world. We understood that texting was going to be annoying, doing calls and stuff like that, but we decided that was the safest thing at the time, and we'd use that as a tool to work up enough trust to get a smartphone where you could have more access to other things. Unfortunately, it didn't go the best, but we did get to the point where we felt we could trust each other and we could move up to, a smartphone with limitations. Unfortunately, that didn't go very well because it was too limited. Like kids, they just want everything. They just want it now, and they just don't. Like this particular individual just didn't understand why he couldn't have it right now. And it was just because we just wanted to make sure that they were safe. I mean, there's a lot of predators out there, and they can gain access to these children through these apps. And in fact, because of the industry that my wife is in, she gets to hear all the horror stories of like, what's Snapchat is a big one right now, because you can not only chat with people, but you can also, it gives their location of where they're at. Not only that, but you could send videos and pictures and they would get deleted after you sent them, and you could delete them and they're gone off the phone. A lot of sneaky stuff going on with a lot of these things. And we were just really concerned because, we were informed. But it's just sucked because it felt like it was just never enough. The entitlement of the up and coming generation is really scary. I mean, I didn't feel like I had to deal with a lot of that when I was growing up. I just wanted to be a kid and have fun. And yeah, if I didn't get what I didn't want, sure, I was bummed out about it, but it wasn't like, now I'm going to make your life miserable until I get it. You know what I mean?
Right. You were raised better.
Yeah, I feel like I was raised pretty good. I had a pretty good mom that was very active in my life, very focused on making sure that I was successful. Yeah, I had really great people in my life that filled the gaps. When I didn't have a father figure close by. And that's why it's really awesome that we're brothers now, and that, I really consider, my current stepdad as a father figure. And I reach out to him, every once in a while when I do feel like I need that perspective, and he's always willing to give it. And it's really awesome. It just sucks that when people make choices that don't assist them, that don't actually help them. It doesn't help anybody else around them, but they make choices that prevent them from learning, prevent them from growing, prevent them from understanding that the world is a lot different when you take off those personal outlooks that you've gained over time. And it's taken a long time for me to figure all that stuff out too. And so,
Right, and we're all still learning. We all still mess up,
yeah.
sometimes on purpose too. We're all still learning as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we get in that rut and we're just like, I made this mistake yesterday. Why did I do it again today?
Right, and being honest, there are even times where you're just like, you know what? I know this was a mistake yesterday, but I'm gonna do it again. Like, I mean, I love food.
I do too.
Like going out and eating carne asada fries.
Oh,
it's just absolutely delicious. And then I get home and I eat them, and I'm just like, whoa, I feel like crap. And then the next day I'm thinking, okay, I'm hungry. Carne asada fries sound good. And then I realize, hey, yesterday I felt terrible, but I do it again just because I choose to make, and not necessarily a mistake at that point, because by definition it would be on purpose, but I choose to do that again because I haven't learned yet. And we are still learning every day. That's why.
And honestly, that's
why
okay.
most people don't die when they're 5. You have a lot more to learn than just 5, 10, 20, 60 years worth.
Well, and, starting out with just recognizing it, that, hey, this is happening. This, I might not want to do this anymore, but maybe it's just not one of those things you want to focus on at the time. But just recognizing that, hey, maybe this is something I shouldn't do as much as I have been doing because I feel like crap.
Right.
Just realizing that gives you opportunities to change and do something different. We might not always do it, the first time, every time. But you know what? That's what this world's all about. It's all about learning.
Exactly. Learning little by little, and hopefully you can learn from the mistakes of others as well, which is kind of the purpose of families, is to learn from the mistakes of your parents, of your older siblings, your younger siblings, aunts, uncles, everyone else.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Because and some people just don't have that opportunity. I mean, if you're like a single mom, you have the opportunity to either, well, depending on how you do it, you have the opportunity to either get back with your ex or find someone else. Or if you're a single dad, or if you're just a regular guy or regular girl, you have those opportunities
or
ahead
just
of
stay
you.
where you're at. I mean, there's
or that, yeah. But your kids, they don't have a choice. And a lot of times, especially
and it causes
like
trauma.
It does, especially in like inner city communities, where if they don't have a mother figure, or more often than not, they don't have a father figure, well, they usually find one, and it's typically in the streets, and it's usually not someone that should be any sort of influence on anyone else, because it's someone that was in jail, prison, whatever, is just hopped up on drugs, however you see drugs, but they're usually not the best person that you want to learn those life lessons from.
Right. No, I get that. Where were we going with that, though?
I don't know, just kind of making changes, what we can do to make changes in our lives, kind of in society in general as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to do things that are benefiting you, the things that are working well, without hurting somebody into getting those things. That's obviously a very important thing.
Absolutely.
And I often think about that when it comes to, working relationships where people don't always treat each other, well in the workplace, which I don't really understand, because the majority of your time, it seems like active time is at work. And so why treat each other like crap when you could, literally lift each other up and have a good experience and get the job done at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, it's just like, and that's the thing I think we need to try to figure out is, what does that look like now? now that society is moving, a lot of the society is moving away from, the traditional, Christian beliefs. And they're just kind of like, now we're going from the scientific belief, but only if the science aligns with our, with our politics. And it's just like,
and only if a particular person, a specific person says that it's science.
Yeah. And I honestly believe it's not the greater majority. And I think it seems that way just because of the way that it's being portrayed in multimedia, the way it's being portrayed on social media. It seems like it's a lot bigger than it really is. But I really believe that all these different groups that are inciting all of this negativity, this decisiveness, this it's me against you, it's you against me kind of mentality is actually a very, very small group that just have a very, very loud voice, and they're using the megaphone of these different things. And now it's getting into big business, especially with these tech conglomerates, and they're pushing that as hard as they can, where they're hoping that everybody will think and believe the way that they do. And the matter of the fact is that that's not the majority. That's just, whatever the agenda is, whether it's to split up people, or maybe it's a smoke screen so that they can do all these dirty, dark deeds in the backgrounds and under the guise of their secret groups, or, whatever the case may be, whatever tinfoil hat you want to wear. Either way, it's not helping. It's hurting. It's destroying our country. It's destroying people's lives. It's destroying society as a whole. And I think at some point there's going to be a breaking point where people start going, I think it's happening right now, where the people on those things are starting to go, ooh, maybe this is not really working the way that I think it was going to work. And I think people are starting to kind of go away from that. I think a lot of these other independent media outlets, even though their voices are small, and even though they are being squandered and they are being thwarted in a lot of different ways from these big tech companies, but they're still fighting for that. They're still
exactly. And eventually, not to get too much into politics, I guess we've been talking about that a little bit, but eventually...
Well, we're talking about the issues. We don't have to go into
issues.
Who is who.
But eventually, those people that do that push all of these agendas, whatever they have, that push these different beliefs, they end up eating their own, which is kind of a little bit of what cancel culture is and things like that. There was actually just recently, I want to say it was a couple weeks ago, Trevor Noah, I believe he's on CNN, who has been like very pro-mask, pro-vaccine, pro-lockdowns, and all of those other things.
All the left ideologies, yeah. Right,
all of those different things. Found out that apparently the CDC came out and said, hey, once you've been vaccinated, now these are the things that you can do. And it was only like 2 more things. I think it was like go outside without a mask, and 1 more thing. And he's just like, are you kidding me? We've gone through this entire year. It was originally, 15 days to flatten the curve, something like that. And it's been, I don't know, about 15 months.
Yeah, well over a year, yeah.
It's definitely well over a year. And he's like, are you kidding me? You guys really need to get this down, because you've been saying this entire time, get a vaccine, everyone get a vaccine. And it's almost to the point where they're like bullying people into doing it by saying, oh, heroes are people that get vaccines. So if you're not getting a vaccine, you're not a hero. Yeah. Therefore, you're bad. Which goes with the whole racist thing. If you just call someone racist, if you call them sexist, bigoted, or whatever, you're bullying them into believing your point. But kind of going back to what he was saying, it's like, how did you not see this coming, dude? You've been spouting all of this stuff, or I guess sharing all of these different opinions this entire time. How could you not see that giving more people power helps them keep that power over you?
Yeah. I think we just need to realize that we're all on the same team. And it's really us against the government. Those are the two teams
yeah.
we really need to worry about. All these other little toughs is just semantics. We really need to focus on America versus our government. That's
Yeah,
really
and
what we need
that's
to focus
why
on.
I don't have a problem saying this. That's why I'm very limited government,
Mm-hmm.
very small government. I don't think that giving power to someone else is ever really a good idea. I mean, even in your personal life, like, here you go, handle all of my finances and I'll just do nothing. It's like, no, that's why would anyone ever do that? Maybe investments and things like that. But if someone says, here, have my checkbook, handle all of my investments, or sorry, all of my day-to-day finances, and they give up complete control, I don't know anyone that would ever do that. Because at that point, the other person's just going to go out and buy a bunch of stuff for themselves. Usually, unless it's a really good person at that point, you're probably in some sort of relationship anyway, so it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just ridiculous, giving more power to the people that have already messed up. And even if you don't think that they've messed up now, well, what's it going to be like when a different person is in office, whether that's Congress, whether it's on the state level, national level, whatever. If it's the other person, the other guy, the other girl that's in office, well, what do you think is going to happen if you've given them more power when your person was in? Well, they're still going to have that power when the other person is in.
Yeah.
And now you've given the opposite team or whatever power over your life.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because depending on the issue, I think my wife called me more of a centrist, but I think I do like I'm actually kind of liberal on some issues, and I'm kind of leave left on some of others, and there's even others I lean a little bit more right, but it just kind of depends. For me, I want to focus on the issues at hand. It doesn't, like, I'm not really rooting for a team anymore because it seems like it doesn't really matter which team I root for or I try to get involved with. It seems like everybody's doing some shenanigans one way or the other. Excuse me. And so I think I'd rather, understand what's going on as far as like the issues are concerned, and then decide for myself what I understand and what works best for me, for my conscience.
Right, and I absolutely agree. I don't, like I always tell people, I don't support political candidates. I support their ideas and their actions, what they actually do when they're in office. I don't care who you are. I don't care what skin color you are. I don't care if you're a boy, a girl, if whatever you may think is in between, or what some people think is in between, or whatever. Can you do the job, and do you share my values?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I care about. And if they're out of office and someone else comes in and they share my values, I'm going for the values. I'm not voting for the person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is they think, okay, well, am I voting for Republican or Democrat? It's like, no. I mean, those are kind of based off of the different issues. But that's not what it's about. You shouldn't vote for a person. Like, it's not a popularity contest.
But it has become a popularity contest. It's not really. I mean, that's what it feels like to me. It feels like more of like who's king and queen, of prom, rather than these people actually represent me. That's kind of what it feels like to me.
Exactly, and that's what it's not supposed to be. But we've turned it into that.
But it's turned into that.
Right, because all you have to do is show people differences, and you have to start with the whole ist thing. So, like, if you call someone racist, then you're bullying those people that like that person into not liking that person and therefore liking someone else. So you're creating that popularity contest. Mm-hmm. If you label someone as sexist, even though they've never said a sexist thing in their life, then you are basically siphoning their base by bullying their base into believing that that's a bad person. And if you vote for that person, that means that you are a bad person. Whether you're on the left, right, center, wherever, you shouldn't be bullying people into believing something else. And especially you shouldn't be bullying them into believing that a particular person is bad for something that they didn't even say in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why we need people like Ben Shapiro. That's why we need people like Crowder. That's why we need people like Joe Rogan, people that are willing to sit down and have a conversation and, compare ideologies, compare, stances on issues. And sometimes you can come out, agreeing on a lot of things. Sometimes you disagree on some things, but just because you disagree with somebody's, stance on things or their position on things it doesn't mean that they're racist. It doesn't mean, they're like, that's the biggest thing. You're a racist, you're an Nazi, you're a bigot because you disagree with what they think. That's just nonsense. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the conversation. That doesn't help humanity when people do that.
I agree. And I always think it's absolutely hilarious when people do that, because what it tells me is if I'm having a conversation with someone, or if I'm in a debate, an argument by definition, not with malice or anything like that. If I'm in an argument with someone, debate, and I present a point and they automatically go to racist, that tells me that they do not have either the facts or the mental capacity to rebut what I said. So they automatically go to those, I think they're ad hominem attacks, but either way, they automatically go to those personal attacks, which tells me they don't know what they're talking about, and they haven't even thought it through, even to that basic level for themselves, let alone thinking it through to consequences that would affect other things.
Yeah, my absolute favorite is when you hear somebody say, "Stop assaulting me," and you're just like, I mean, I honestly, I haven't personally had any of these issues. Talking with people, I feel like I'm able to talk well enough to have a discussion with people, and I'm a genuinely pleasing person to be around, so I don't really have these issues. But watching some of these YouTube videos and some of these TikToks and stuff like that, you're just like, what is happening right now? You're having a conversation. Yeah, it might be a loud conversation, but that's not violence. That's silly. That's nonsense.
No, and what people are taught is that words are violence. Well, if you understand anything about basic English, a word is not violent.
Yeah. But
that's
if you
not
change,
how this
if
works.
you change the definition of violence, Dalton, then it's violence.
Exactly. You have to change the definition, which is why people are so focused on the media and education, because if you control the media and education, you're controlling
the world,
basically everything, because both the media and education are often, depending on the media, are often focused on that younger group, that younger demographic, which goes back to this whole thing with Lil Nas X or whatever. Once you put that into their mind, I mean, you're not necessarily controlling them. Like, it's not a mind control or anything like that, but it's
hypnotic suggestion. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's mind control, but definitely hypnotic suggestion. And then you stack on top of that where you have, these large media, or not media, excuse me, these large social media conglomerates like Facebook and Twitter, even on YouTube, where they have all these specific algorithms, which are very, very questionable about exactly what they're supposed to do. Now, they say that they're supposed to give, well, I think YouTube's probably been the most fair out of all of them, but I feel like with like Twitter and all these other things, they're pushing things in front of you and saying, "Hey, look at this. Hey, you should look more at this." Like the filterizations with Google, which is very strange. If you Google certain names and certain phrases, they take you to things that aren't what you're looking for, but it seems like it's the things they want to steer you towards. Which is a whole nother thing. And then, going back to the social dilemma, where they're selling basically your information of how you shop, where you frequent, what food you buy, how many times you go. Do you look at porn? Do you look at naughty pictures? Okay. Well, then we are packaging everything of how to keep that person in front of the screen and to continue to buy things and to continue to do all these different things.
And it works.
It works very well, which is very scary, especially when you start including all these political things and saying, "Hey, we hate this person. You should like this person."
Right. And there are even more subtle ways of doing that. I think, kind of, since you brought up Crowder,
keep going. One of the things, my nose real quick.
Okay.
Sorry.
I know one of the things that he was looking at is there was a political candidate. It was one of the Democrats during I want to say it was during the primary. And it was one of the ladies. I don't remember her name off the top of my head right now. I think it's the younger looking one with long black hair, something like that. And he was looking and using a VPN to kind of go to different locations. And information about her would be brought up in other countries. But if you looked her up, like on YouTube, I think it was YouTube, it might have been on Google as well, which is basically the same parent company, same group there. You couldn't find that information. And this was during the time of the election. So if you have someone that you're interested in, even if you don't know anything about them, you're curious, so you're going to look them up to see if that might be someone that you would be interested in, especially since there were, 25 candidates, some ridiculous number. Even if it was 10, it's a ridiculous number. Although I think there should be more, but kind of traditionally speaking, there's usually 3 or 4. But they weren't able to find her information here, and that's kind of scary as well, because at that point, if there's someone that says something, a political candidate or whatever, all these companies have to do is just get rid of all of their information, and no one can find it, and if no one finds it, no one's going to vote for them. So in that kind of subtle way, they can steer people toward other candidates or steer them away from candidates just by not showing their information.
Yeah, wasn't there a couple of countries where regimes would rise and fall depending on how they utilized the Facebook algorithms and how they, canceled or perpetuated certain people?
I mean, I don't doubt it. I mean, that's kind of what they were trying to do here with this candidate.
I could have sworn it might have been something on Joe Rogan's program from the 2010s, 2011, something like that.
And I mean, you could be right, because really all it is, it's changing public opinion and manipulating public opinion. And that's really what politics is. It's public opinion. What do people think about you? What do they know? What do they not know? Whether it's true or false, they think that they know, so they're going to base all their decisions on what they think they know, or they're going to base their decisions off of what you said. And if you called them a racist, well, then they're not going to vote for that thing that you also called racist, because people don't like to be different. That's just kind of how it goes most of the time.
It's okay to be different. We're all different.
Right, exactly. I would never want everyone to be the same. That would be the most boring place ever.
Yeah.
And I mean, different doesn't necessarily mean you have to force diversity, which is one of the things that bugs me. I don't care about diversity of skin. Yeah, I don't care about diversity of skin color, because if you do,
forced diversity.
You're saying forced diversity. Because at that point you're saying, okay, well, we need someone who is white, or we need someone who's Mexican, because that makes them different. Well, no, it doesn't make them different. They could be sisters, or they could be brothers, and they were born and raised in the same house with the same culture. Are they different just because of the color of their skin? It's no, that's stupid.
Well, okay. I guess I don't really understand that. You mean that we shouldn't be celebrated because of our skin color? Is that what you're saying?
So one of the things that I'm kind of referring to is, it goes along with a little bit of affirmative action.
I don't think I wrap my head around what you were just saying.
That's perfectly fine. One of the things I'm talking about is a little bit of diversity hiring, or affirmative action, things like that, where they want to hire someone,
okay,
or they choose someone based off of their race, which is ridiculous, because that tells me that you actually value the person's race, which, if that's the case, then you're saying that they are fundamentally different in other ways, which means that, and one of them, because that's how hierarchy works, if you're picking someone because of that, then that must mean that whatever characteristic they have because they are black, or because they're white, or whatever, is better than a characteristic from another person, which by definition, if you're saying that, you're saying that one race is better than another, which is racist. So I don't care about diversity of skin color. I don't care if you have purple skin. Can you do the job? I care about diversity of culture. I care about diversity of experience. I care about diversity of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have those things, or I guess, yeah, the diversity of skin color doesn't matter to me. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I care what you can do and what kind of person you are. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that goes back to Martin Luther King Jr. Goes back to him saying that I don't remember the exact quote, but that basically people should be kind of judged on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Whereas
Right.
today, people are being judged solely on the color of their skin and not the content of their character. So we've kind of gone backwards within the last, I don't know, 12, 13 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So objectively, like let's go back to Lil Nas. So Lil Nas is an artist, and objectively, numbers don't lie. He's a good artist, and he placates to a wide variety of people. He is a good musical artist. It shouldn't matter if he's black. It shouldn't matter if he's gay. He should just be good on the merits of what he's producing, right?
I agree. I care about merits, not skin color or sex or any other immutable characteristic.
And it should be that way.
I agree. And a lot of places aren't doing that. They're hiring based off of skin color. I know there was one job where I was kind of going for it. I had applied for it, where they told me I wasn't hired, or that I wasn't going to be hired because they were looking for a woman. Well, that's discrimination, and not just in the sense of I'm picking one thing over another, right? Which is absolutely illegal. But that's, even if we don't use it right now, that's what affirmative action is. You're saying you have to have so many people of this skin color, and you have to have so many people of this one, and so many people of this sex or this sexual identity, which is another thing that I believe at least some states have added, probably California and New York and like Colorado or something. I'm not super sure. But you're basing your decisions off of their skin color, which is racist, because that means that you're not choosing someone else because they're white. Or by definition, it would be sexist because they didn't choose me because I'm a man. Now, if the person got hired and they were just better at the job than me and more qualified, great. That happens all the time.
Yeah. That's normal.
That's what I expect to happen. If you're better at the job than me, I want you to get the job, and I'll go get another one. And if I get it, I expect that I was better than the other person, or at least that they thought I had more potential, or I don't know, maybe I fit in with some of the people there. I don't know, but I don't want it to be based off of skin color, sex, or anything else. And nowadays, a lot of it is.
Yeah. I think, just to kind of wrap up our thoughts here, I think what it all boils down to is we just need to treat each other with more love and more respect than we have done in the past. I think we need to start being more objective about our situations within ourselves, within our communities, within our families. And really push forward on the ideals that work, the things that, help us grow and to learn and to, understand each other and to be tolerant of each other. I think we need to learn more about how to talk to each other and just have a conversation and be like, oh, well, I don't agree with that, but that's okay. We can still leave here, with having a conversation and still, still feeling uplifted and edified and having a human interaction that is positive. And I know this, this is me kind of being hippy dippy stuff, but yeah, I really feel like we just need to be better human beings to each other and to treat each other with respect and love, and to figure out what that means to each person, and to look forward to the future. That's all I can think of.
I absolutely agree with you there.
Well, Mr. Daltino, we've been doing this for, wow, almost 2 hours. And I can't thank you enough for jumping in. It was kind of a last minute deal. And, with my lovely wife going to Bunko tonight that she gets to go to once a month. And she likes being, hanging out with the girls and stuff. And so thank you so much for coming, man. I always have really good conversations with you. I always feel like I learn more, not only about, my little brother, but also learn more about myself as well. And again, thank you all who've watched this live and who are going to watch this later on. You guys have a wonderful day, and we will see you all in the next one.